this property manager, seriously, like she like called me on the phone and she was like, I just had to bust down this door. She Kool-Aid-manned herself through this door to get it open so her guests could grab their stuff and leave. That is absolutely not, that should never even be like a thought that should cross someone's mind. Like, there should be that plan A, plan B, plan C, because why are you throwing your shoulder into a door and tackling it like a football player for your guests to get in? Absolutely insane.
Welcome back to the STR Investing Podcast, everybody. I am your host, Mark Lumpkin, and this week we have another special guest. Every Friday, guys, we are bringing you cool people from the industry that are doing something fun and niche and that will add value to what you're doing as an investor in the short-term rental space. This week is no different. I'm excited to introduce Amber Barron. Amber's with some of the coolest smart lock people in the industry. And Amber, would you say hi?
Oh my gosh, Mark. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I'm flattered. I'm seriously so flattered and honored to be here. Super stoked for our conversation today. I'm going to try to keep the fangirling to a minimum, sitting across from the sales director at SDR Cribs. But yeah, super stoked.
I love it. Yeah, it's super fun to chat with you as well. I know we met for the first time, VRMA Vegas last year?
Yeah, sure did. And Caesar's Palace, yeah.
Was it Caesar's Palace, the elevator?
It sure was. And then when we trekked to the conference that we thankfully found eventually after our 20,000 steps that we took.
So far away. So the story,
that was something.
Like, there's supposed to be a direct shot, but F1 or the to this after hours event, but then they have was it F1 that was in town?
Yeah, I think so. They
had like all the streets closed, so you couldn't get there. So we had to walk for like an hour to get to this place that was only 5 minutes away.
Literally a journey. It was a journey. If there were no signs, Mark, I think I would have probably not made it, but
quit and turn around. Agreed with you. That was super fun. So give us a little intro to what do you do, what company you're with, what do you guys specialize in? Let's just give us surface level so people know what we're going to chat about today.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Amber Barron, as he's introduced me, and I'm a business development manager here in the vacation rental, short-term rental sector of Dormakaba. So what I focus on is, the security and the safety around short-term rentals. Which is why me and Mark are chatting today. So usually what I do is, as a business development manager, obviously help you develop your business, right? So the conversations I conduct, I usually talk to owners or operators just about, their potential operational gaps around access. Because, access is the first impression of every single stay, right? So, getting your guests in and out safely and potentially also not, right? So just talking about ways that we can help, you guys do that.
So we're going to dive into what you guys do at Dormakaba, and it's super interesting, but I want to preface that conversation by talking about and giving my experience on the vacation rental industry and how I think it relates to flying and the travel industry, which is I really believe that vacation rentals are a lot like flights, where the takeoff and the landing are two of the most important pieces of the experience, and they're the most memorable part of the experience, right? If you have a really bumpy takeoff and a bumpy landing, it leaves for a bad experience, and you don't remember what happens in the middle. So vacation rentals are the same in that check-in, check-out are super important, which is what you guys do. And so can you just talk us through exactly what you guys do? Like, do you guys do hardware, software, a combination of both? Like, what is the product and experience that you guys offer?
Yeah, so specifically in my sector, right? So my main focus is short-term rentals. Dormakaba, however, it is just a global leading security company. So our products are found everywhere. So, some of your listeners may hear the word Dormakaba and it may not sound familiar. However, what I can guarantee is that they've used our products almost probably every single day, depending how much they travel, right? So, because we're found in, airports, we're found in motels, hotels. If you've ever been to you have used our product. Now, for what I do, again, specifically in my sector, is very similar. So I provide a product that, is, of course, the hardware piece, but also the software piece. So I never refer to them as locks because, you might look at it and go, oh, like she provides locks. But what I like to refer them as is an access solution. So you get the hardware piece and you get the software piece. Obviously, they have a relationship between the two. But what makes it a truer solution is even its relationship with PMSs, with task manager softwares. It goes as far as that, right? So we try to, when we have our conversations, see where we fit in your tech stack, because that's always the goal, right? Like the goal is to create automation, booking automation, having no human intervention, right? So those are usually, the conversations I conduct and like the goals that I have sitting down with somebody.
I love that. So you guys have like some pretty deep-seated history in hospitality and in products and services.
We do.
I'm always a big fan of the short-term rental industry looking to hotels and seeing what they've done traditionally in years past, because that's oftentimes scalable and very relatable to what people should be doing in the STR space with a little bit of flavor. So what have you, I have a few questions. We're going to circle back to a few things you said, but my next question would be around what are some of the similarities you see, specifically access related, between the hotel and the short-term rental space?
Oh, that's a good question. I see a lot of front desk staff, a lot. Like if a short-term rental property management company has a main building, they usually have someone at the front desk. And what I've seen is they usually have them there 24/7, which there's obviously the perks that come along with that, but unfortunately there's also the cons, right? You do have to pay that person more to be there. You do, have to train them on probably more than, one thing, right? They're probably wearing more than one hat, so they're tending to a lot. There's just, I don't want to focus on the cons, but because there's the pros too, having that 24 presence. But, usually when I go into a conversation and talk about that, when I bring up the solution that I provide and explain it, a lot of the conversations end with, do I need this person at the front desk? And that's not them saying it as if they need to get rid of that person or get rid of that role, but due to the capabilities and the features that are provided in, the access solution, there just doesn't need to be that presence because the lock takes its place, right? Like if you can still keep the visibility and the control that, you have being in person remotely, I mean, why wouldn't you let that person get their 8 hours of sleep, So that's probably like the biggest thing that I've seen when comparing, like hotels to short-term rentals. Definitely, of course, the entire team, like I said, wearing more than one hat. And then I would say like access is kind of similar in the way where a lot of short-term rentals still use keys, which is very interesting to me because unfortunately key handling does, there's the risk of key loss, right? So those are definitely some interesting, I guess, comparisons. You brought up something that I think is really, really cool. And you probably need to take this back to your marketing team and tell them that they should do this. But I never thought about it until just now. Your front door lock, your smart lock on your property, if you've got a vacation rental, is basically like the clerk at the front desk of a hotel. Absolutely.
It's the first thing that people see. It's the first interaction that they have with your stay, with their hospitality experience you're providing. So that front door lock is your receptionist, is your front of house person. That's really, really unique and cool. I never thought about it like that. And I would assume that how easy that lock is to maneuver, how easy it is to get into the home is very similar to like the experience you'd have with that person at the front of a hotel. How friendly they are, how studious, how prompt, how quickly they get you your stuff affects the entire stay and the entire experience. And so how do you guys focus on that? Like easeability of accessibility, and how do you guys focus on making sure that the code is the right code and the door has proper batteries, and just to make sure that that front desk person, that front access point is a great experience for people when they show up?
So there's different ways that this lock, these access solutions, whatever you want to call them and see them as, can work, right? Because again, there's so many different features and capabilities that it just depends on how they want to use it. So let's say they want to eliminate their 24/7 staff. If you implemented our solution onto your property and you had a PMS, we at this point, Mark, probably integrate with 60 different PMS systems. Next week, it's probably going to be 70. Like, we have so many different partnerships with PMSs. There is a super unlikely chance that we cannot integrate with a PMS. So once you implement that solution and get it integrated with a PMS, Whenever someone books, it is automatic. There is no human intervention. That code that is generated from that booking is just automatically sent to your guest, and they can just access the unit. And the nice thing is when that code is generated, it is always time and date stamped, and it has a certain level of access, so that guest can only access whatever you want them to. So if you have a main building and you also have the guest unit they need to access, then they can access both, but nothing else on that property. It's completely up to whoever's, wants to intervene, right? Because they can set it up in that way, or they can intervene if they want to, but typically people, like to just let the automation do its thing, right?
It's a total solution. So that's what you're saying is you guys provide a total solution that streamlines the process and pairs up with your PMS, which is really, really cool. A lot of our listeners listening in are individual investors. So they're individual investors that are setting up their first, second, or third short-term rental, and most of the time they're employees. They're W-2 employees, they're doctors, they're attorneys. They're not people that are going to drive to the property and hand someone a key. And so this is really important to them to learn kind of some of the tips and tricks behind automating your check-in, check-out. But I got to circle back before we dive into some of those. I got to ask, how many people do you guys run into, just a general idea, are still using hard keys and are either showing up to the property to hand a key or have like a traditional contract or lockbox where it's like the code's 1, 2, 3, 4 and the keys are in there? Like, do you still run into that every day?
I respectfully, everyone who's listening, too many, way too many. We had a motto at one point saying that the future is keyless. I'm going to argue against that. This is my personal opinion, that the future is now. It is absolutely now, because I'm flabbergasted every single time when I come and have a conversation with someone and they tell me they use keys and have 100 different properties, not even in the same state, in different markets, and they're still using keys. It blows my mind, because how do you coordinate and communicate with your team and get your cleaning people where they need to go? And what about, the turnover, and it's just you have to time everything perfectly. You have to be the most organized person ever, truly.
That's insane. So it's insane that people are still doing it. What I would guess is most of our listeners, specifically on this podcast, are rolling their eyes going, I'm never going to have manual keys at this house. A smart lock option is the only option. We're all on the same page. Everyone listening in, we're all on board. Keys are archaic. You should not be messing with them. It's not even an option. What do you think about having them as a backup option, though? Do you think that you should have some, even if you have the whole home solution that you guys offer, you've got all your smart locks, you've got everything hooked up, do you think you should have a backup set of keys somewhere hidden on the property? Do you guys advise that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do. I think so. I mean, for us, right, we're going to have a plan A, but we're going to have a plan B. But then we're going to have a plan C, but then we're going to have a plan D. Because we're never, ever, ever going to let one of our partners not use our product. We want everyone to be confident, right? We want the guests to be confident. We want the staff to be confident. We want the cleaning team to be confident that they're going to get to where they need to go safely and quickly, like you said, right? So for our solution personally, we typically use codes. However, one of the perks is you do have credential flexibility. So you can use codes, you can use RFID, you can use Bluetooth if you wanted. You get to decide what credential you want to use. And God forbid one of those credentials fail, we of course have a mechanical key override, so you can get in no matter what. So, I mean, it's up to the staff where they want to place the lockbox, but we do provide those to keep the key safe, of course. But they do have that option. And then, if let's say the battery dies, right? Which is very unlikely with our product because we use Bluetooth low energy. So I want to say our locks, depending how high the traffic is, they last probably a year. They have a year of life. But let's say worst case scenario, you miss that battery notification on your site and the lock dies. We have this little device, it's a backup battery device that you can use to kind of Frankenstein the lock and jolt it back up so they can get in. So we have all these measures in place so that, lockouts just do not happen.
I love that. That's so cool. You mentioned something about Bluetooth. So how does that work? So I know if the lock that we use at our house, if the Wi-Fi is down, we can't do anything. We're screwed. That lock does not function. And so you mentioned Bluetooth, and can you kind of dive us into some of those advantages and how that works?
Yeah, of course. So having a Wi-Fi lock or access solution, it can be a little nerve-wracking because it's Wi-Fi reliant, right? So if that Wi-Fi is, there's some disconnect, or if the Wi-Fi completely goes out, the worry of the lock not working is obviously at play. For our Wi-Fi reliant locks, we actually have, the easiest way to explain is that we have emergency codes stored inside of them. So no matter what happens to your Wi-Fi, if you go and put in that emergency code, you will get in. And the nice thing is too, is that if that code is generated and sent to the guest before their stay, it will still work on the lock no matter what. The Wi-Fi needs to be up when the code is sent. But if the Wi-Fi goes out during the stay or even at the end of the stay, they'll still be perfectly fine. We put those things into place, obviously, because we know that the Wi-Fi is obviously like a huge, like you need it, right? And then there's also actually something super exciting that's coming out soon, which will be, one of our, seventh credentials. Our lock will soon be able to, I guess it'll be comparable to cellular technology. So it'll kind of work like your phone. So instead of that lock, seeking Wi-Fi and struggling to seek it and then just not working, instead of just, continuing to seek that Wi-Fi, it'll just automatically connect to a satellite instead. So that's something that we're really excited to roll out here soon.
I would guess that's going to be really, really popular with everyone, but to start off with those kind of remote properties, right? Where the niche of vacation rentals is that you get a unique property that's different, and oftentimes that means that it's far away from other stuff where there's limited Wi-Fi and things like that. But cell phone service carriers seem to be everywhere at this point. So that's really cool. When do you guys roll that out?
That's a good question. We don't have a projected date yet, but if I had to guess, probably within the next year or so.
Okay, cool.
Because we're very thorough here, so we want to make sure that it's the closest to perfection as possible before we roll it out. So
I love that. Well, when you do, let us know, and we will shoot everybody a notification and make them know
yeah, for sure.
that's coming. So that will be a huge unlock for people that have limited Wi-Fi capabilities at their location. And then what are your thoughts around just like general hygiene of locks in general? Like this could apply to anyone that has a lock around the battery. Because I've noticed like we've got one lock that seems to, like you said, last every year, and then we've got to change batteries. We've got another lock that seems to run through batteries a lot quicker. It's a more high traffic property. But like what in general, what do you guys kind of recommend people are doing? Should it be a quarterly maintenance? Should you just change the batteries when they need to be replaced? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
This is such a good game of 21 questions. You know what, for us, we on our site, right? Because like I said, we provide the hardware and also the software. So the software is a site that is cloud-based. And on that site, you actually can see the battery status. So maintenance is not necessarily something that you always need to worry about because you'll be notified. Like you'll be let know like, hey, this lock's, running a little low. You might want to check on it. You might want to change out the batteries. And it's a notification that will continuously pop up. Not to the point where it's, blowing up your site, but it won't let you get to that point where the lock dies. You know what I mean? So that's something that we put in place for that. For our locks specifically, I've heard a lot of people use lithium locks due to temperature fluctuations and just like the lock itself. We actually use alkaline for our locks and have found out that they just work so much better and that the longevity is, the lock just lasts longer. So we just pop in a couple AA batteries and the lock does its thing.
And so yeah, having to change them out once a year is really not a big deal, right? It should be pretty easy to throw it on your annual maintenance checkup plan and have your handyman or your cleaners swap out the locks. Is battery exchange really easy? Is it just like a 30-second thing?
Yeah, there's like a screw you unscrew, you pop off the back and you just throw in the batteries. So probably takes all of like maybe 60 seconds. So I would say easy, relatively easy.
I love that. So let's talk about the user experience. We'll dive into the software, but I do want to talk like a little bit about the hardware because I'm a big believer that the unit itself and how easy it is to use that unit is really important. And there are some that you go to where it's confusing. You're like, holy, what do? I got to hit the check button and then I got to hit the number button and then I've got to put in a 6-digit code and then I've got to double click. Like, it's confusing even for someone that knows locks. And so what's the easeability for the guest experience when they show up? How easy is it for them to get into the house using your guys' locks?
So you don't have to break into the unit, that's for sure. It's not like this lengthy, whatever process. Again, it kind of depends on what credentials being used. So if it's a fob, you just take the fob and hit it against the lock. I think RFID is
So that's going to
magic.
be like
So
your cleaning crew. Your cleaners, they
yeah,
can have an RFID or a fob or your handyman, and then they can just bump it and they get into the room anytime.
absolutely. I mean, and of course the codes, right? So for our locks, it depends. We have two different series. One of them just has those, the numbers that kind of like pop out, like they're like the textured, so when you click it, like the button goes into the lock. So that's like our more, I say, old school, old fashioned series, still top of the class, but a little bit more old school. And then we have our Sapphire Evo series, which is that one Wi-Fi lock that I was telling you about. And for that one, there's just this little white square on it that you go ahead and click, and then you just type in the code that was sent to you from the PMS and the lock chatting. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so what are your thoughts around the actual codes? And this will be good for anybody that's setting up any type of smart lock. What code should you give your guests? Obviously, you want rolling codes. You want a code to only last for the stay duration, right? Someone checks in at noon on the first and they check out at 3 on the third. That code should only work during that time window block. It should not work later, right? You agree with that?
Yep.
What number should you assign to them? Should it be the last of their phone number? Should it be a random number you generated? What are your thoughts on like the actual codes hygiene and what you should give people?
I mean, as someone who works at a security company, I understand the ease of sending someone, the end of their phone number. But unfortunately, like when you're granting access, you want things to be as tight as possible, right? Like you want to let the right people in, but you obviously want to keep the wrong people out. So for us, like we always recommend keeping the code at 6 digits, which, some people believe is lengthy, but for us, we're here to, again, just protect you guys, right? Like we want to provide you the most robust security solution that you guys could ever find. So again, it depends on, I guess, like who is issuing the code, if they're doing so manually. But the PMS is usually the system that will generate it with the lock and just send it to the guest. So that's automated and just randomized. But if you're talking about like an individual doing it, that's just my advice. But I mean, you can do as you please, right?
No, it's good advice. It's good advice, right? Because I obviously don't necessarily think about that. I think more about the guests, like making it easy for them and making it easy for them to remember. And obviously the last 4 of their phone number is super easy to remember, but it's not a very secure code. And if you have a property that you've invested millions of dollars into, do you want to take the risk on that? Is the extra 2 digits really that big of a deal? No, but it probably drastically changes the security situation, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
I love that. That's good. There you go. Get them 6 digits. Your PMS automatically creates that random number, assigns it to them, and then it works for their stay, and then it doesn't work again, right?
Yep. There's always going to be an expiration because we know, like, it just, the second they're supposed to access, they're going to be allowed to access, and the second that they're supposed to be out of that unit, well, that's what's going to happen. So
Yep, I love that. And then I do think for me a big thing is like the visibility of seeing who's coming and going, at what time they're coming and going, things like that.
that is huge.
Well, can you talk us through like how your guys' service works with giving you the visibility?
Yeah, this is probably I call myself a dork because I love talking about this feature. So Mark, you know how you posted on LinkedIn that like a bag of broccoli or something, and I made the joke about Popeye, even though it's like he eats spinach or whatever. So let's say, Mark, that you wanted to find out who left that bag of broccoli and why they would ever do that. So if you were using, let's say, the Sapphire Evo, and they went in to that unit, they left that broccoli, and they've been coming in and out, and they left it there, whatever, you could go onto the site where you would see the last 5,000, it's an activity log, so 5,000 events of activity. So you would see when he entered, when he probably dropped off that bag of broccoli, and probably also like when he exactly left it, right? So we provide that feature, because unfortunately it's not always a bag of broccoli that's left. There's also, I guess darker things such as
For sure.
theft
Yeah, like I found guns in our
and
property and all kinds of
yeah,
stuff.
like damage. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So having that audit log, it helps you narrow down, like, okay, like who is this in this unit and when, right? Is this someone who could potentially be the person that either took this thing or, caused this damage or did this, whatever you're trying to figure out, right? And that can unfortunately also include cleaning staff and, staff members that maybe shouldn't be there. It helps with those unfortunate instances, but also, those funny ones. So,
and it's going to be huge for people that are managing remotely, right? If you can't go get eyes on your property, you want to know who's coming, when they're going, when they're coming, when the door opens, when the door closes. If the door didn't get locked, right? It's midnight, the guests showed back up and they forgot to lock the door and the door's wide open. And like, you just want to know that stuff. It's really good information for you to have. So I love that you guys do that. I want to kind of transition the conversation into like the broader short-term rental industry. And like, we've seen where it was, right? We talked about people still having 100 properties that they have individual keys for and they have to manage and track them. And when one goes missing, they have to replace it and send a locksmith. That's the old way of doing things. There's still definitely people stuck in that way. But then we've got today's way of doing things with all these great smart locks and rolling codes and different access permissions, things like that. Where are we going? Like, where do you think the future is? If you had a crystal ball and you're looking at this in 3 or 4 years, we've got AI, we've got a lot more travel demand being very specific to unique stays. What do you think happens and what's your prediction? Amber's prediction of the short-term rental future.
Man, that's probably the best question. I mean, they're all good questions, but this is probably the best. That's, you know what? I definitely see AI coming into the picture at some point, for sure. How? That I exactly don't know, but I would say that's probably the next piece just because it's been blowing up so big and so fast. I think for us, like being able to compare a technology to something that's cellular, making things more flexible, I guess, like we come across situations in this industry that we sometimes don't expect, right? So having something that has that flexibility to, be a solution, not just for one issue, but being for several, I think that's, I mean, at least here at Dormakaba, right? Like that's always something we're aiming for is improving and pushing forward. And like we do all this research and all these things because we want to keep progressing and making sure that, we get there. And how does that exactly look? I guess I don't know other than that, but.
Yeah. Okay. I have a real world instance. I actually really like that answer. I think that's a great answer and giving more flexibility and we have processes, right? You got processes in the short-term rental industry with codes. We talked about the code not working as soon as they check out and their time expires. Well, what happens if they check out at 2:55, checkout was 3, they drive 3 miles down the road, little Jimmy starts screaming because he forgot his Game Boy underneath the bed. You're like, oh, I got to roll back and go back, but now it's 3:10 and the current software process, which doesn't have AI involved with it, doesn't let them back into the house. They have to have a person manually override that. But you could, with the future of AI, she could send a message and say, hey, little Jimmy left his Game Boy in there, could I get in? And then that code could automatically extend its usage case for another 30 minutes or something to let that guest back in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, I guess right now, right, you're right. Like that would be AI. Like currently it's a person, but moving that over to AI and even creating more automation, definitely huge.
AI is going to let people have more flexibility with their automation. Right now, automation is very rigid and very just SOP, matter of fact. At 3 o'clock, that code no longer works, even if that code should work until 3:30 to let them back in. And so I definitely think that will change. Do you think that, are you guys working with a lot of individual investors or mostly property managers?
It's typically property managers just because our software it's known to be very scalable. It's meant to grow with you. So it's typically people, currently acquiring properties or managing several. But of course, it's not, one size fits all. It kind of just depends on, your wants and needs, right? And the operational gaps, all that good stuff. We are definitely, in the humblest way possible, definitely a premium product for sure. Due to the grade of our hardware and, the capabilities that I've explained throughout this conversation. So it kind of, just is dependent on wants and needs.
I get it. Do you think that the industry will continue to gravitate towards like more consolidation? I was just curious, like, because you guys are dealing with a lot of property managers. Are you seeing them be like, larger property managers with a lot of properties? Are you seeing more boutique property managers with just like 5 to 10? What do you normally see adopting these solutions that I think everybody should have?
Yeah, typically the people I talk to, I would say they average, they're definitely like above like 60. Like they have a good amount. And these are, those companies that have the properties that aren't in one space. They're not even in one state. They're sporadic. They're spread out. They still need, the visibility control, all those good things. So I would say they're more on the larger side, personally, is who I speak to.
And there's a lot of property managers out there that have, that have 5 to 10, and there's a lot of property managers that have 50 to 100. And so
tons. Yes.
the industry's massive. All right, are you ready for some rapid fire questions? These are just like quick answers, okay?
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm ready.
Okay, you're doing great. So I'm a remote property manager or I'm a remote investor and I've got 5 or 6 properties. What are some best practices for maintaining my locks, making sure that I've got all my systems dialed in? Like what are just some quick tips and tricks that I need to know about in order to give guests great experience and make sure that all my features are functioning well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, of course, considering your tech stack, right? Because if you have all these different softwares, if you have this hardware and they don't communicate and they're not working together, is it truly a tech stack? So I guess just making sure everyone's chatting within the business, right? Like the locks communicating to the PMS, the task manager software, whatever, that they're all doing what they need to do together is super important. Of course, like considering, like where are these properties? Like, are you always present? How big is your team? Like those are things that, like those are the first questions I typically ask because it helps me narrow down, okay, is the solution one going to be a good fit for your business and going to be a true access solution, right? Like I'm not going to hand you an access problem and cause a problem at your business. Like it needs to be a good fit. It also, again, comes back to wants and needs. Like, do you want these features? Do you need these features? Like where are your operational gaps if you have those operational gaps, right? So probably those points.
Okay, what are the biggest pitfalls that you see? Like what are the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to access? And I'm going to start off by saying, I guarantee you the first one is they still use hard locks. Is they still use a key that's in a lockbox and they go, your code's 1, 2, 3, 4, and the keys are in there. Please make sure to put them back when you check out. Like I'm going to guess that's number one. But what are some other things like pitfalls, downfalls that people fall into that you see that causes them problems with access?
You know what? So this actually happened super recently, unfortunately. So not having a plan A, plan B, plan C, right? If you just have a lock and key and that lock for some reason doesn't work, the key doesn't work, whatever, and you can't get in, obviously a huge issue. So one of my most recent partners who's located in Mineral, Virginia, I think we have a locksmith that's flying there literally as we speak. They decided to move forward with our solution because they had a residential lock on one of their doors. And for some reason, the lock went out. They couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. The key wasn't working. Like the guests could not get in to grab their stuff and leave. And it was towards the end of their stay, right? So this is like them trying to check out. They couldn't make it budge. So this property manager, seriously, like she called me on the phone and she was like, I just had to bust down this door. She Kool-Aid-manned herself through this door to get it open so her guests could grab their stuff and leave. That is absolutely not, that should never even be like a thought that should cross someone's mind. Like there should be that plan A, plan B, plan C, because why are you throwing your shoulder into a door and tackling it like a football player for your guests to get in? Absolutely insane.
Then they had to fly a locksmith way out there. So by not having a plan A, plan B, plan C, your potential downside risk is massive, right? You have a guest that can't get their stuff, they can't get into the property at 1 o'clock in the morning, and their kids are screaming and crying, and they're tired, and it's raining, and da-da-da-da. Like, plan for so what you're saying is plan for the worst case scenario and have a backup to your backup so that there's always a way to get into the house without having to kick down a door.
Yeah, absolutely. Like access is something that, typically, like we want you guys to not think about it, right? Like access is something that should just happen. There shouldn't be any intervention. You should just get to where you need to go. And unfortunately, usually when you're thinking about access, it's something like that, right? So that's always the objective, is just to
Is that your craziest story? This lady recently Kool-Aid-man down the door.
God, it's definitely one of them. Another one was a Baby being stolen from like a vintage, like back in like 1890 Beanie Baby being stolen. But yeah, the horror stories are unfortunately pretty horrifying, but that was probably one of the craziest.
That's nuts. Well, cool. Well, Amber, thank you for coming on. What's in the future for you guys? I know you talked about doing, like, obviously integrating AI. You guys have some extra features that you're going to drop here soon using self-service, things like that. What else is on your guys' roadmap? Is there anything else that we need to keep our eye out for?
You know, it's not going to be in the near future, but we do have a new lock series that will be coming out, I would say, within the next few years or so. So that's super exciting. And it's honestly like something that I don't even really know much about. I've only seen a few visuals, but rumor has it it's going to be the best of the best in our sector. So
I love it.
Stay tuned.
Are you guys going to be at any events the rest of the year?
We'll definitely be in Nashville for sure, which I'm super stoked about. As for the other ones, those are TBD, but you guys will definitely see us around for sure.
I love it. Maybe we'll bump into each other in an elevator again.
In another elevator? For sure.
Always great to chat with you, Amber. Thank you for coming on. How do people reach out to you? How do they connect with you and your team?
Honestly, like I am all over LinkedIn. You can genuinely just message me if you'd like. My phone number, my email's on there. You can just reach out. Or of course, just find us on our website. You can go and just type in, short-term rental, vacation rental solutions, and my team will pop up for you guys.
I love it. Thanks for coming on, Amber. Great to have you. Guys, we'll drop Amber's links in the show notes so you can connect with her if you want to. You can chat with her and her team about what they do. Definitely take this to heart, right? Having keys, hard keys, is not acceptable. Is not going to be an option for you. It is only going to lead to failure. It is only going to lead to bad guest experience. You have to have a whole home smart solution that does everything for you. And like always, guys, make sure you like, share, subscribe. We appreciate you listening to the STR Investing Podcast. Next Monday, we are dropping another Monday Market Data Report. And next Friday, we'll have another guest speaker for you. Amber, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Mark.